Open Meeting Act is posted on the wall, accessible to the members of the public. Second item is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on September 5th, 2023 on file in the city clerk's office. Approval of treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $788,526.54. Approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $59,172.48. G is approval of write-off ambulance bad debts. H, approve of pay request number 2 to Plamo Plumbing in the amount of $75,874.65 for the Gage County Industrial Park Sanitary Sewer Bypass Project Phase 3, 2023, as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Approval of final pay request in the amount of $89,814 to Mid-Continental Restoration Company Incorporated for the exterior building repairs to the Beatrice Police Department project. Item J, resolution number 7125, reappointing Dan Kunzman to the Citizens Advisory Review Committee. Item K, resolution number 7126, entering into the Interlocal Cooperation Act agreement with School District number 15 of Gage County, Nebraska regarding the employment of 2 school resource officers. Item L, resolution number 7127, entering into a memorandum of understanding with School District number 15 of Gage County, Nebraska regarding the employment of 2 school resource officers. And item M, resolution number 7128, adopting and updating the Americans of Disabilities Act, Reasonable Accommodation Policy, and the Grievance Policy. Anything anybody would like pulled off?
G.
G? Okay. Anything else? Mr. McLean.
I move the items listed on the consent agenda with the exception of item G be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Gentlemen, your vote, please. That passes 8-0.
I move that item G listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Okay.
I got a question. First of all, we're still, it's like $10,000 average bad debt we get rid of every month for ambulance bad debts. But I'm looking through here, and maybe you can explain this to me. Is that patient number? Just so the public knows, we don't know who these people are. But is that patient number on there?
I'm pulling them up for you here so I can look at them. So you have the call number, which would be our call number, and then, there'd be an assigned patient number to them as well. So, there are no names.
Yeah, we don't get to see names. But patient, I won't even say the name, but 4 consecutive calls went to that same patient. At some point, isn't there something we can do to, we can't deny services to the people, but if 4 calls, all of them, 4 consecutive calls, all went to that place between the 21st and 28th, and we're not getting any money back on it.
You have some individuals who are very frequent users of 911. So we did implement some different charges in there as far as non-transportation fees. So if we do have to go out and assist because usually we can only bill if we transport. So we have started to add some of those fees in over the last couple of years. But yes, you still have some individuals who are willing to call 911 for almost anything.
Okay. All right.
Any other discussion?
We can't refuse.
No, you can't refuse.
No, it would be very, very bad policy because the one time you do refuse to go would be the one time that he or she really needs some assistance, and that would not go over well for us. So,
Liability would be tremendous.
yes.
I did too.
Okay, gentlemen, your vote, please. That passes 8-0 as well. Public hearings, we have 3 tonight. The first public hearing is to supplement the fiscal year 2023. That hearing is now open.
Something we do every year is we go back and we have to supplement the current budget. So this one's for FY23. So we have to look at what additional expenditures we had over what we had budgeted to expend. This year, it is a larger amount, just under $12 million. But as we kind of go through those different things, you'll see how we got to that number. We start with, on the general fund side of things, you see there's a large amount up there for insurance proceeds, about $1.6 million. So that's a very common theme as you kind of go through these of what led to this budget surplus. You also see some items in there for increased salaries at the police department. As everybody's aware here, the city council improved some wage increases for the police department and dispatchers. So those obviously then went over budget, and so we have that occur here. We have a fleet vehicle that had some hail damage, and so we have that. We have an ambulance that obviously got wrecked this last year. That was not something we anticipated or budgeted for, so that item is in your surplus as well. And then we have some donations, about $35,000 in donations, in excess of what we anticipated. Insurance claims came in higher than we had budgeted for, about $400,000. But again, we have cash reserves there to help with those items. In the street department, you had a couple items that carried over from FY22. So we budgeted them in 22, they didn't actually occur till 23, and so those carried forward into this year. That was a mill and overlay project. They also had some roof repairs, and then they had another project we actually added this year, which is some curb and gutter work on Court Street. We did that by taking out some equipment for next year's budget for the street department. We actually ended up with more Keno money than we anticipated, which was always good. On capital improvements, again, you see library roofs, city roofs, and then a couple grants for some trails projects. Again, we don't anticipate getting grant money, and then when we did, some additional funds we had to expend there, so that was always positive there. On the public safety debt, you see some backup 911. A lot of those are carry forwards from FY22. So again, items that we had budgeted the year before that just didn't get done for whatever reason, whether equipment wasn't ready or the people just weren't ready to install them. Sanitation, they had some vehicle repairs and they brought some additional totes that did not initially anticipate, but they had the revenue in their operating to be able to pay for those items. So that was taken care of. Electric department, they have a big carry forward for roof repairs and geothermal stuff, about $500,000 there. You see some increase in price on some transformers and meters. Again, those came out of the cash reserves on the electric side of things. And then we also had the Red Leg grant to the hospital. If you recall, we got a grant through the USDA. The electric department had to put a match in there. That money then was loaned to the hospital. So that was added into the budget. Water department has about $4.5 million in there in SRF loans. So again, we had the opportunity to get some SRF loans. A lot of those projects came through in FY23, were not initially budgeted for. And so you see those items come through. They were budgeted in FY22 and then carried over to 23. And then finally down at the wastewater plant, you see roof repairs again for about $146,000, and those are insurance proceeds. So it is a large number at $12 million, but as you kind of go through there, you see where those numbers came from. A lot of it carry forwards from FY22, and then roof repairs. Nobody anticipated the amount of hail damage we had a year ago and having those claims still be working out. So any questions on the budget supplement?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. So, I'm not gonna vote against it, but I'll put in here what I usually do is when we have excess Keno dollars, those are supposed to be community betterment funds, and I would wish those would be left in the Keno fund for the council to use them as discretionary funds when things come up. That was when we first started getting Keno dollars years and years ago. There wasn't a lot of money in there, and when things came up, we had those to spend. So not voting against it, just throwing it out there. I wish that'd be left in the Keno dollars. I wish it'd be left in the Keno funds for this council using the discretionary funds. So there you go.
The only thing I would clarify is the money we're paying on Keno is the additional tax.
Yeah, I know.
For the additional revenue we got. So we didn't spend it. We had to pay our own state tax on it, so.
I get you. It's one hand in one hand, and I get it,
Yep.
but I wish it was left in there, so.
From the public, any discussion? If not, Mr. McLean.
I move the public hearing be closed at 4:09 PM.
Second.
Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. We will go ahead and do the ordinance adopting the supplemental budget for the fiscal year 2023. And we will first take action tonight. The rules will have to be suspended. The number we read only three times. Motion is not debatable. Mr. McLean.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-26, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Okay. Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Ordinance number 2326 by number only the first time, 2026 the second time, 2326 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 23-26 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any further discussion, gentlemen? Seeing none, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Okay, we'll now go to the second public hearing for tonight is for the purpose of receiving comments from the public regarding the proposed wellhead protection plan. That hearing is now open.
We're gonna let Taylor take this one.
Okay?
All right, so tonight we're talking about our wellhead protection area. Recently, the city acquired some acreage to the east of our existing wellhead protection area. This will in turn have us be expanding our wellhead protection roughly a mile north and roughly a mile east, just to have in case we need additional well fields in the future. This is part of a bigger plan, what's called the Drinking Water Protection Management Plan. What this does essentially is it establishes some best management practices to prevent pollution of our drinking water resources. What this also does is when we have those best management practices in place, that can make certain funding available for establishing these best management practices, and generally just prohibits some old outdated farming practices within the wellhead protection area. Would just note that we've had 2 public meetings on this already, and that we have worked with the state, NDEE, NRD, all these organizations, and we have received the blessing of all those organizations.
Discussion from the council. Discussion from the public. Seeing none, Mr. McLean,
I move the public hearing be closed at 4:12 p.m.
Second.
your vote, please. That passes 8-0. The third public hearing tonight is for the purpose of considering the application. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. I want to tell you up front. What's that? Fortunato Sanchez, doing business as Al Palacio? Al Palacio, 2205 North 6th Street, Suites 18 and 19, Beatrice, Nebraska, for a new Class 1 liquor license. And that hearing is now open.
You wanna call it chief?
Yep, I will call, the Chief of Police and Chet from the Community Development for their reports.
Good afternoon.
Let me swear you in first here, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Do.
Thank you. Okay.
As we conducted a background investigation into the 2 applicants for the liquor license application, Mr. Sanchez he listed no traffic or criminal application. Sorry, let me start over. Listed no traffic or criminal convictions on his application. But when we did the background, we found 13 traffic citations or warnings from the time period of April of 2011 to August of 2023. Also noted 2 criminal convictions, one for fraud for an insufficient check out of Lancaster County in 2005, and a second conviction was found dated January 29, 2021 for indecent exposure in Lancaster County. It was also noted that he had 13 civil cases filed in Lancaster County. Appear to be a majority of them are collections related. Some of them have active judgments currently on them. In regards to his spouse, there were no criminal convictions located. However, she did have 11 traffic violations or warnings and had 3 civil filings which appeared to be collections related, and one of them were still currently active.
For planning and zoning, there were no issues found here. This is a like business, replacing the one that left. So there's nothing here that would find anything to deny this on our side, so.
Okay. Discussion. Gentlemen.
Are we just getting a report from these gentlemen, or are we getting a recommendation from the police chief?
Report.
I was trying to put you on the spot there, John.
Well, and I'll just add that they're statutorily, if you make any false statements on any part of these applications, that's generally seen as the offense of perjury. And with that, I think if we recommended this to the liquor control, we would not be putting ourselves in a good position knowing that this application has false statements in it, or omission of statements that should have been in there.
Taylor, remind me, if we were to not deny it, it still goes to the state and he could still possibly.
Correct. Ours is merely a recommendation. The state ultimately still has the last word on that.
Okay, we'll let you two go and see if we have any comments from the public.
Taylor, have you seen that happen?
This is my first time.
No, I mean, where a local subdivision denied an application and the state approved it?
I have not in my time being here, but it doesn't sound unheard of to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's happened.
Yeah, it happened to me, and we were completely legal with an old council and my brother.
Yeah, we just didn't like you. It wasn't all then.
All right, I don't see any other discussion. Okay. Mr. McLean.
I move the public hearing be closed at 4:17 PM.
Second.
Your vote, please.
This is to close the public hearing.
You don't want to close the hearing?
This is for closing the hearing for those of you, yeah.
There we go.
Okay,
8-0.
all right.
I move the application for Fortunato Sanchez doing business as El Pasillo, 2205 North 6th Street, Suite 18 and 19, Beatrice, Nebraska, for a Class 1 liquor license to be recommended to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission for approval.
Second.
Gentlemen, any more discussion needed?
The only thing I'd say, and I took a phone call from the public, and I'm assuming the majority of you guys did too. My concern was if there was an omission because he was trying to hide something, or an omission because there was a language barrier. I don't know which either that was, but my suggestion to him would be to get, obviously, it's not going to pass here, and it's obviously, from my tenure here, this isn't going to pass the state. My suggestion would be that you get someone from your staff with a clean criminal record. So I don't care if it's a waiter, manager, dishwasher, have them apply for the liquor license. That's the best way to go for you. So, because you can do that. And I saw Rich nodding his head, Mike nodding his head. We voted for them and against them in the past and had the liquor commission overturn what our recommendation was. So I've sat here doing that. But that would be my suggestion to you, and moving forward for your liquor license application, you get someone else that you're connected with there to do that for you.
Did you follow all that?
I'll help him out with it.
Okay, Stan. You
I'll handle it.
yeah, if you want to, you can put it in your name.
No.
Yeah, you can. No, you can.
No, I mean, no.
Well,
Yeah,
Yep.
I'll explain it to Fortunato and his staff. They're really good people, their food's great. Was not quite aware of all the history, but yeah, I'll work with you.
Gentlemen, your vote, please. And that fails 6-2.
No, well,
Wait.
you don't get a vote.
Am I on?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
there you go.
we
There we
done?
go.
1-7. I don't know. Are everybody done with their vote now?
Doesn't matter.
All
All
right,
right,
2-6.
2-6. Okay. Okay, moving on to resolution. Resolution number 7129, adopting the Wellhead Protection Plan developed by Olson's Incorporated for the purpose of protecting the public water supply system as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move the resolution number 7129 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Again, this is the Wellhead Protection Plan is a smaller part of the Drinking Water Protection Management Plan. This is essentially just to expand it, like I said, that mile north and mile east.
Any more discussion needed? If not, your vote, please.
Are you against, Gary, we're voting on the wellhead protection plan, you still no? Okay. You're fine. Just checking.
You can leave it on there, it's still gonna pass.
All right, resolution number 7130, adopting the Drinking Water Protection Management Plan developed by Olson Incorporated for the purpose of protecting the public water supply system as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move the resolution number 7130 be passed and adopted.
Got it.
So again, this is the larger plan that develops for us some best management practices. This will also make available for funding. Some of those there will be funding available to make those best management practices come to fruition. Again, we worked with the state on this, multiple agencies there, the NRD, and we have received the blessing of all of those agencies that helped us develop this plan.
Any more discussion needed by the council or the public? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Move on to resolution number 7131, entered into an agreement for the purchase and sale of renewable energy certificates between the city and ACT Commodities Incorporated as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move the resolution number 7131 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Again, we earn renewable energy certificates or renewable energy credits, RECs, from the wind farm that we're part of out by the Hastings area. Those credits just kind of accrue into our bank account, and then about every 6 months we sell those out on the market. We usually go through ACT Commodities. They provide us the best price that's out there. So once again, we're looking to sell about 6 months worth of certificates here to ACT Commodities.
Discussion needed. If not, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. We have no ordinances. Public forum is next. Purpose of public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council at this time. Do we have anybody here for the public forum? Seeing none, we'll move on to discussions and reports. First item A is proposal of Merchant McIntyre Associates for the Federal Funding Action Plan discussion.
Yeah, previously we've had some conversations about looking for a grant writer or looking for more federal dollars, and so I was able to locate this company, Merchant McIntyre. They're based out of Washington, D.C. What they would do and what they do for other communities is they go out and help fund or find funding at the federal level, whether that's through your congressional delegation or from various federal grants that are available. If you looked through their packet that they provided, what their monthly fee is, their monthly retainer is $8,000. What they're asking for is a 3-month agreement to start with, and during that first 3 months, essentially what it sounds like is they'll come down and talk to our department heads, find out what projects we're working on, help us figure out what programs may be available for us, and then put together kind of a metrics of what they think we'll be able to go out and get, or will at least be able to be competitive for on various grants. Also start lining up meetings with congressional staff, those types of things. And then if we like what we see, then they would ask for another 1-year commitment, again, at $8,000 per month to help write grants and go after those dollars. When speaking with them, what they don't want to do is just go out and chase dollars. So if we're not going to have a competitive grant, a particular item, they're going to recommend that we don't go after it. But they think they can help us put together a grant application that'd be competitive. That's what we look at doing. If you look through the list of types of funding that they're looking for, you'll see they have obviously transportation, so street safety, those type of things, water, wastewater, law enforcement, public safety, economic development, parks and rec, and other. So it's quite a wide variety of different grant money that they'd help us go out to maybe secure. So that's what they're doing. I did reach out and contact about 5 or 6 other communities, roughly our size, that they're currently customers of. I got so far comments back from one of them. They said they just started. They're about maybe 4 or 5 months ahead of us. It's been positive. They had their city council meetings were on YouTube, so they sent me a copy of it, so I watched their presentation that they made to their council meeting. It was informative, and it sounds like they do a pretty thorough job, so.
The only thing, as I read through that, the only thing they didn't sell was their success rate.
Correct. It talks about they've acquired some grants, but it never says that they acquired 5 of 200 or 5 of 6 grant applications.
Right,
No.
and it's, we have talked about this in the past, not with this body, but in previous bodies, and I was supportive of it. I mean, you think about it, a year's contract, and with this, I mean, you're still talking about a lot of money, you know, but if they can get one grant, it pays for itself.
Yep.
And my question to you is this: are they set with the flat fee, or when we've discussed this in the past, they're given the fee to administrate the grant? So not only this group is just finding the grant for us, and we're still responsible to administrate it. But my question is do they have the ability to, once they find the grant, once we've received the grant, can they get the 10% or the 40% that we usually pay ourselves to administer the grant, and have us pay them that money?
In their proposal here, it says that they will support the city, and includes planning, partnership, grant writing, and includes administrative requirements. So they do list administration in there, is helping us with that portion of it.
But they're not asking what my suggestion is that we pay them that we don't pay them the $8,000 a month, that we pay them that.
Their offer is $8,000 per month, flat fee.
Yeah. And that's non-negotiable?
They will tell you they negotiated already with themselves. If you read through here, they charge lots of communities $10,000 a month, and so they feel like they give you a bargain at $8,000. We did have the conversation about, can you charge based upon percentage of the grants you receive? And they tell me that it's illegal. They're not allowed to do that, so they can't simply go out and get a percentage of the grants.
Well, how many grants do we write, do you guys write?
Right. Depends what year it is. Some of them, there are a lot of grants that get written. Other years that we don't. Depends on how many grants are available and what projects we have coming up. So.
And they're not usually done like every single month. They're usually pretty seasonal. So you might have 3 months where you're writing 8 grants and 3 months where you might write 1 or 2 or none. So it really just depends on what project is up that we think is going to be good for that grant and when those funds are made available. But in recent years, the federal dollars that have been out there, there's dozens of huge grants that we just don't really have the resources to kind of
Well, don't get me wrong.
make it competitive.
I know you and Tobin and those guys, you spend a lot of time on grant writing, and this will probably free up a lot of your time to do other things, like go after a couple of boys I want you to go after. But yeah.
But some of these new federal grants and, the raised grant, some of those are pretty complex
Very.
applications, aren't they?
Very much so.
Yes, they're very complex to write, and they ask for some stuff that's not common on our local grants, and so it's a different language that you have to be able to speak that we're just not quite fluent in at this
If you
point.
miss a technicality, they'll throw it out, right?
Correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
Terry?
You guys, I want to speak in favor of this, which maybe isn't a shock to you, because I've talked about us doing that maybe in the past in meetings we've had throughout the last few months. And this is nothing against you two guys. It's just like you have real jobs in addition to this, at least 1, if not 2 or 3, and then we lay grant writing on top of you, even though we've been really successful in getting a lot of grants. I think what we're doing here is committing to about $24,000, right? $8,000 for 3 months. Let's take a look at these guys and see whether or not we think they're worth their salt. Every grant I was ever involved with in the past has got administrative fees in it that we get to use for administration. So we're going to have money there to take care of administration, I believe, if they can get us any kind of grants. And there are so many trillions of dollars right now going through those budgets that we need to be able to have somebody involved with that to be able to get some of that to filter all the way down to Beatrice. So I'm voting in favor of it, and I would encourage you guys to do it.
I'm also going to vote in favor of it, but if we had to hire a grant writer that can do this, what would we be paying them?
Seeing what the market is out there for a grant writer, I haven't tried to hire one, but I think you're probably going to be at least $60,000 for salary, and then when you add benefits on top of that, or easily another 50% of that, so you're going to be at $90,000 for a grant writer. And then again, a grant writer is different than a grant administrator. Those are two different personalities, right? A grant writer is very flowery and is able to speak that language. A grant administrator is a very nuts and bolts, can follow the letter of the law. Usually those aren't on the same type of person.
Yeah, and that's the point, I'm glad you said that, because that's sort of the point that I'm saying too, is, these people know what they're doing, supposedly, and that's it.
Let's go, Tim first.
I just got a question. Absolutely no brainer in my opinion, first of all. Second of all, I know we're talking 90 days at 8,000. Are they gonna, if we decide to extend for the year, are we gonna get the same 8,000 for the other 9 months?
That's what they tell me, yes.
Okay, that's what I wanna make sure of.
So just so you know, I had not looking at this Dempster's project. I got from NED a couple of grant applications, one that was approved and one that was not approved. And as I was reading through them, I went, I understand why this one was approved and this one was not. So it's important to have someone that does this and does it well.
Good point.
Well, and I think the other point that they made, since they are based out of Washington, D.C., they do have access to at least a number of aides, if not some of the congressmen and senators themselves, which is something that's sometimes difficult for us to do as well. Okay. Since it's a discussion, we'll bring something back at the next meeting. The next meeting on the 29th of September is to approve just the bills and claims.
Right.
It will be another first meeting in October, which will be October 2nd. So, okay. And speaking of money, the next thing we have is the Finance Department overview. Hannah?
Hello, Council.
Hello the second time.
Hello. Yeah, I've been here a lot these past month or so.
Oh, this morning.
Oh, yes. Hello. Hello again. My name is Hannah Bell. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Beatrice. Sorry, I'm already slacking on my clicking. I was hired with the city in 2014 as an office assistant receptionist for the front counter at City Hall. I was then promoted to accounting clerk in 2016, and then I took over as an accounting assistant in 2020. That's when I started my training with Linda Cook to take over her position as finance director. And then I've been in my current role since January of 2022. I have my bachelor's degree from Peru, and I have my MBA from Northwest Missouri State. I'll point out that both of those I was able to obtain with the city's tuition reimbursement program. So, thank you. Service organizations I'm a part of. I'm a board member of the Young Professionals of Gage County that just kicked off again here recently. And then I'm also a board member of the YMCA Foundation. Moving on to my finance team, I have 9 employees. Jean Van Laningham is an accounting clerk out at the service center. Her title is accounting clerk, but she does lots of different things and kind of helps manage the service center out there. Mandy McMurphy is an accounting clerk. She's been with us for the past 2 years. Carrie McGrury is also an accounting clerk, 23 years. She used to work for the police department in the victim assistance program. She now does all of our MARS billing, so she helps with routing and setting up new customers. Again, wears lots of different hats. Chris Anello is our ambulance billing clerk. She's been with us for 14 years. She started over on the utility billing side, so you might recognize her from the drive-through over on utilities. And then Debbie Burrows is also an accounting clerk. Been with us for 3 years, and she originally started over with dispatch with the police department. And then I recently acquired the utility billing department. So that's a change that we did here recently. So they also fall under the finance team now. Dale Brazzi is a program analyst. He handles all of our utility billing, start to finish, does all of that process. He's been with us for 46 years. Brandy Condit, she's our new hire, just started over in utility billing. She now works the drive-through counter. Michelle Paquette is our part-time utility billing clerk. And then we also have Dave Warnke, utility serviceman, 33 years of service. He's another one of those where he gets called from a lot of different departments to just kind of help out wherever he can. So those are the people. Just to go over a few of the different daily duties that my finance team handles on a day-to-day basis. The biggest duty is definitely assisting customers. So I would argue that they're one of our most forward-facing departments. They work with a lot of different people throughout the community, answering phones, answering all different kinds of questions. And I just listed out some of the different bills that we produce from our office. So obviously BPW, with your utility bills. We also have a lot of billing that we do through just the city offices, the different departments that we have under the general fund. And then we also have our MARS billing, BOSWA billing, and all of our ambulance bills. Lots of different services that go with those. So it's calling up just to pay your bill, but it's also if you have a question on something. So those are just a few different things that they do with customers here in the city. They also work our accounts payable and our accounts receivable. So putting on invoices from both sides of that, invoices that we're sending out to people, invoices that we're paying, managing purchase orders, sending out statements to customers, and also balancing statements that we receive. So working on both sides of that. Lots of cash receipting. So we receipt any money that comes in citywide ends up in our building at some point in time. Most of the departments, so the library, police department, BOSWA, they do their own daily deposits, and then those all get filtered into our office, and they're all receipted down at City Hall. And then I have it on here several times, but balancing reports. There's a lot of reporting that we do on a daily basis, a lot of reporting. And then, of course, other duties as assigned, which is always everyone's favorite that they get added on. But I wanted to put that on there just because we have so many people who do little tiny tasks. So I kind of stuck to finance here. But a lot of my team goes out and helps different departments with different things as well. Moving on, some of the weekly and monthly things that my team would take care of. We do payroll every 2 weeks. So in our office, we are in charge of balancing those hours that come in. So the employees put on their time, and then the supervisors approve that time, and then we get the information and balance out the hours that they have on. With that would be reviewing the calculations that our payroll software runs, and then preparing the reports to turn into me. Mandy McMurphy would also be in charge of putting together our claims listing. So that's the list that you guys see with every council meeting. She puts that together, makes sure that all of her invoices are on correctly, turns that into me as well. And then she would also print checks. And then utility billing, they have a monthly process that they run that you're all familiar with, but sending out delinquent notices, sending out their shut-off notices, and then doing reconnects as those come into the office as well. Mailing statements, lots of different ones, utilities, BOSWA, MARS, city, so a lot to do with those. And then another important aspect that I feel like they all have is communicating with the different department heads. So a lot of things funnel through our department, so all of my team really does have to connect with each one of the different department heads. So a lot of communication going on there. And then balancing more reports. So reporting is the name of the game. Moving on to some of the things that I work on a daily basis would be supporting my finance team. So that's obviously one of my biggest roles is just communicating with my team, making sure everyone feels supported, that we have the right people hired, doing all the training, getting the right people in place to do that training for us as well. And then communicating with department heads. That's a really big task of mine, working on where are their projects at? Do you feel like you're coming in on budget? getting those reports out to them on a monthly basis, and making sure that we're all on the same page with where their finances are. Monitoring funds. So we have, on the governmental funds, we have 11 different funds. And then on the proprietary fund side, we have 6 different funds. So there's a lot of different codes that things can be applied to, that we have to make sure that the coding is correct and that it's getting paid out of the correct fund. And then of course we have revenue and expenditures on both sides of those. So a lot of different things to monitor with those. And then I also monitor all of our bank accounts. So I'm logging onto accounts every day, making sure that things are being receipted as they should, that deposits are balancing. Monitoring our general ledger. So our city uses a 9-digit GL code, and then our BPW uses a 6-digit GL code. So that means that every time something's paid, it's getting coded to a specific general ledger line. So one of them is just making sure that those codes are going to where they should be. And then lots of journal entries. We use a software called Cassell to do all of our accounting work. It does a lot of entries for us, which is great, but there are still quite a few that I do on a daily basis. Monitoring internal controls, that's another big one. When our auditors come, that's something that they do ask us about. What do we have in place for internal controls to make sure that we're handling things appropriately? So just keeping an eye on that on a daily basis. And then that reporting word again, lots of reporting. Weekly and monthly basis for my end. So monthly balancing, and that's of a lot of different things. We balance accounts receivable, utilities, doing bank reconciliations, doing our cash allocations. So lots of different moving pieces that we handle on a monthly basis. And then the second piece of that is getting our monthly financials out. So updating the city administrator's monthly report, getting financials to all of our different department heads. I did want to point out with that, sometimes it feels like that financial information is getting out a little behind. So with this meeting tonight, we would have, I'm in September, I have July in there?
July 31st.
Is that right? Yeah. So usually the second meeting of the following month is when I can officially close out and say that my claims are paid. So with this second meeting, after my claims have been paid with the second meeting in September, that's when I can start running August and making sure that we have everything balanced for August. Payroll side, I just wanted to point out that that's based on the number of employees that we have and the fact that we do payroll for city and BPW separately. It's about a 2-day process. Most of that is handled on my end. Mandy balances the time, and then I kind of take it over from there. But submitting payroll, submitting taxes and deductions, and then we have a lot of quarterly reports that go with that as well, and then printing our annual reports.
Hannah,
Yeah.
you said back there that filling out checks, do we still give paper checks to our
Yep.
employees?
Oh, no, not to our employees. No, those are all the same way that you get yours. Yep, those are all electronic. Mm-hmm. We do write paper checks for vendors.
Yes.
Those are all paper. Yep. Submitting the claim listing to you guys, so just looking over that list that I get, making sure everything's coded where it should be, monitoring budget compliance with those, and then just checking for accuracy. Maintaining the EBA fund, so paying the claims, any of the health insurance claims that we have, paying the premiums, and then monitoring that just to make sure that we're still falling in line with where we should be budget-wise. Sales tax, BPW pays sales tax monthly, and that's something that I calculate and then submit to the state. The city pays that annually. And then I also have Keno reporting on there as well. That's another quarterly that we do. We receive the reports monthly from the EHPB, and then I balance those and submit those to the state. So the two big things that we kind of have going on throughout the year are our budget and our audit. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to just kind of walk you through the budget cycle and the audit cycle, just so you can see kind of what we're working on month by month. So if we're not working on the budget, we're working on the audit, and vice versa. So to start with the budget cycle, I usually start that towards the end of February, preparing our big giant spreadsheet, making sure that we've got all of the lines in it that we need to, cleaning up any things that might have been pointed out from the year before. And then I'm also verifying the beginning balances that we have. And then in March, once I have my capital budgets ready to go, I get those sent out to the department heads for them to fill in what they're thinking they're gonna need for the next 8 years. I also work on calculating all of the employee wage costs so that we have a good personnel cost in our budget. Labor is obviously one of our biggest costs of the budget, so making sure that that number is fairly accurate with where we need it to be. And then verifying any of the general ledger lines that we might have changed throughout the year. In April, I get those capital budgets back from the department heads. We're working on revisions. We're asking questions for clarification. I'm also working on entering estimates for the current year, entering the new budgets for revenue, putting all of those in, and then sending the operating budget out to department heads. So they send me capital back, and I send operating out to them, and they start working on the operating side of things. In May, we continue to make those revisions on the capital, and I get the operating budgets back from the department heads. And then usually around that time, Tobias and I sit down and kind of do a brief overview of where things are looking to be at that point in time. And then I go through and enter the budgets for some of those other funds that don't have a department head that would fall over them. So those are those that are listed there. And then in June, we have our department head meetings, which I always enjoy because we get to sit there and talk about the budget for like 3 days straight. But it's really eye-opening. You get a lot of information from the department heads. And I do want to say they all do a really good job of understanding where their budgets are at and kind of what they need to operate their different departments. And then again, just ensuring those fund balances are calculating correctly. That's one of the biggest things that we run into with using a spreadsheet the way that we do, just making sure that things are totaling the way that they should, that I've dragged the spreadsheet down far enough to pick up the cells that I need. So looking over that as well. In July, we have our meeting with the mayor and city administrator just to go over one more time, make sure that things are looking appropriate for both of them, and there isn't anything else that we need to, any drastic changes that we need to make. I also look at estimates again to make sure that we're still falling in line with where I thought we were going to be 2 months prior to that. Updating any final revenues that we were provided by the state. Our highway allocation dollars, we have to make sure that those are exactly what the state's going to be providing to us. And then entering any transfers and reviewing those balances. And then in August, we finally receive our valuation from the county. So the turnaround time on getting our notice published in the paper and getting our valuation from the county and deciding what that property tax request is going to be that we present to you guys is a pretty quick turnaround. So once we finally get that number, we're able to really start moving with calculating what we think the tax levy will be, thinking what we think that final tax request is going to be. And that's when I start to print and distribute budgets, working on all of our notices, creating the ordinance and resolutions, and then obviously preparing for our budget hearing. And then in September, which we're finally through, we have our budget that gets approved. I'll submit it to the state here end of this week. And then we review prior year budget to determine the supplement that was just passed tonight. So I look at the estimates that I put in for the 24 and 25 budget and make sure that we're in line there. And then we file that supplement with the state. And then I put October, but here in the next few weeks, I'll be working on getting the new budget implemented into our accounting software. So now that budget is over, I'll switch my focus to our audit. So our auditors do come one time between April and August just to kind of go over any big changes that they see coming, any changes that I need to be working on prior to what our normal procedures would be. In September, I'm working on updating our ACFR file, which is also a big spreadsheet. So making sure that we have everything, any new general ledger lines, updating our budgets, things like that. Preparing for and executing our year end. So there's a lot that goes into making sure that we have transfers in place, that we have accounts receivable on, cash receipting. There's lots to look over for year end. And then we're beginning prep work for the auditors. And then in October, we have our first meeting with the auditors. They're there for, I think, a day or two, just to really go over any of the internal controls that might have changed, Any preliminary requests that they might have had that I've been working on that we can get turned over to them. And then we submit confirmation letters to all the banks just to confirm that where we say we are is where we actually are. And then in November, I run our first trial balance just to kind of see where we're at. In no way are we ready to close by November, just with all the different entries that we have to do. But we do run a trial balance. Working on closing out assets, all of our different closing entries that we need to do. And then our auditors are on site for 2 weeks in November. The time that they're there, they're asking questions, getting any additional documentation that they might need, asking questions, lots of in and out of my office, just going over different transactions that they might see. Again, they tell you that every year, but they don't look at everything. They just find those high dollar transactions and kind of go from those. Yeah, lots of documentation. And then in December, continuing balancing reports. We have some more closing entries that we're able to do in December. Any revenue received within 60 days after year end can still go towards that year end. So some additional entries that we have to make there. And then our auditors are on site again for another week, usually the week right before Christmas. They're back in our building and kind of going through more questions. We have our 35K Keno report that we do, preparing a lot of additional spreadsheets, and then more documentation. In January, I produce a rough draft of the ACFR to the auditors, so that gets submitted to them. They have several processes on their end that it has to go through before it's finalized. So a lot of edits back and forth between the two of us, whether it's wording or dollar amounts that they want clarification on. And then I start working on the management's discussion and footnotes. So the big chunk of papers that comes at the front of your ACFR that has nothing to do with your spreadsheets, typing those up. And then in February, I submit the CFA to the auditors, which is our schedule of expenditures for federal awards. So all of our federal dollars have to be reported separately. Those are all kept on a spreadsheet, sent to the auditors in February. Again, working on that management's discussion and footnotes, getting that over to the auditors. Usually by February, we have a pretty good revised version of the ACFR. So getting that final one over to the auditors. They usually send me a copy back that first week of March. If there's any additional changes that they have, we'll make those before we start printing, and then it's presented to the council. From there, we have to submit it to the state. Our auditors submit it to the feds for us for that CFA listing. And then we also prepare our Title 132 for our BOSWA financial assurance. So we're working on that in March as well. And then you'll notice March kind of just flips back over to the budget cycle. And so we would just start the process on that end. I did look, we had 359 different items between PDF spreadsheets and Word docs in our audit file from last year. So that just shows the amount of information that we're collecting and presenting over to them. That's it.
And you wonder what I just say. Is everything okay?
Any questions for?
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Very impressive. You obviously like numbers.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I do.
So I presume talking to city councilmen and trying to make them understand.
Oh, yes.
Is under the
I needed to
their
add
duties
a
or
point
something?
for that, yes. We'll just throw you under the talking to department heads. But in all honesty, too, if there's any questions that I can ever clarify, feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call, stop by.
She talks to you, Terry? She just tells me to get out of her.
Never mind, I'm not gonna go there.
She sends them down to
No
my
reason to
office.
get that started
The
right now.
amount of time that you spend with the auditor in November, is that boilerplate? I mean, do they come down, do they give you basically a worksheet? Is it the same thing every year? I mean, give me the right Reader's Digest version of the audit.
Yep, a little bit. So the preliminary request, I actually have it on my desk already, where they sent that to us in August. It's a pretty broad, here are just a couple points that we want you to go through. Did anything change is really what they're looking for with that. Once they get on site, November, I'm able to have a pretty good number for the Board of Public Works. Since they are a proprietary fund, it's run a little different, so they don't have that 60 days that they have to wait. So I can get some pretty good numbers to them. So that's their main focus when they're here in November is BPW. Outside of giving them those trial balances and then knowing, just kind of going through the process and knowing what they are going to ask me for. Outside of that, they could ask for anything. So I know that they're going to come in and ask about any large contracts that we started this year. They're going to look at all of our SRF funds. They're going to want to see all of those invoices. So just knowing what we know, we can start pulling those. But it's not like they come in and give me a list prior that says, we know we're going to look at these 12 transactions.
Part of my question is that you're obviously going to get more now because we have the airport authority, then you're going to take that over and that's going to be part of this. That fell under your...
We've had them...
It was under your umbrella
in the past.
as well. Anyway. But now they're just, it's a separate thing. They don't have a budget. They don't have...
Correct. It might actually be better this year because they'll just be part of ours and they don't have to have that separate.
And they don't ask you specifically about how or what we're spending on. If we had sewer department bonus revenue in there and we needed to spend that in water department, they don't care.
They would want to see additional documentation on it. I don't know if I would necessarily say whether they would care or not. They would want to make sure that we have followed the proper documentation and move it.
As long as you can explain what we have done, they have no problem with it.
I will say usually yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll put it that way. The more documentation that I can provide back to them, the easier my job is. Yeah.
Nope, not a question. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Hannah.
She has to explain what we do. Boy, that's a tough job.
All right, now we'll move on to the city administrator's monthly report.
Once again, you have the report there, just a couple of highlights for you. Dempster's, we have started eating that elephant, if you will. The first building at Dempster's is down, the mechanic shop, so kudos to Chet for getting that one down. It was some structural issues there, and we were able to work through both the state and the federal level to get approval to have that one taken down. So it's been removed. And the same location, you see the Gage County Trail Depot site. You see the work being done there. Some people call it a detention cell. Some people call it a sponge park. You can call it what you like, but it'll hold the runoff from the parking lot that's there and help show what best management practices are for that type of development. And so that's kind of what we're using there. Again, we got a local contractor we're working with and doing a great job for us there. And then 33rd and Lincoln Street, I have no update. So I know that's always a question. I'm going to let you know now. I have nothing new. JEO, we're trying to get a meeting lined up here shortly. And so as soon as we do, we'll give you an update on that one. But
Yeah, I was a little surprised at the cell site there at the Trailhead Park that they set all their piping in the grass when they could have set it in the parking lot and not killed the grass. But the retention cell there is similar to what we need in Hannibal Park to alleviate our flooding. If we could replicate that on a scale of about
a lot bigger.
four or five times, that's what we need. So I'm anxiously awaiting how that works for us there. So.
Waterfall project, we should at least
Yeah.
say something about that. If you haven't driven by there, please do, because pretty impressive, I think.
Turned out great.
Comes under, we do some things good once in a while, category, and we don't talk about it very often. So I just drove by it again there this evening. It's about 98% done. It looks very nice. It was a good project.
There's a steady stream of cars going through the park. If you spend any time in the park, like Terry do, as I do, a steady stream of cars going by it the last few days. Social media, if you're a fan of that, there's a site on Facebook, you're from Beatrice or you're from Beatrice or something, but there were 500 plus comments on there, and there was not a single negative comment. So
that's scary.
Yeah, it's a little frightening as well. So, but yeah, it's all good. Yeah, it turned out good there. I just so you guys know, I've talked to Tobias about a bit of an addition there. I spoke with Mark about it, and Ms. McGuire left, but they'd like to, Mark would like to finish, they would like to finish, put a flagstone patio out front, some benches. There's some costs involved in that. I've talked to Tobias about it. I'm sure that you guys will get an opportunity to talk about that in the upcoming weeks, but
Boy, that'd be a project for Keno funds, wouldn't it?
if we had any discretionary funds left, that would be a great thing for Keno funds, but, yeah. But there's funds available for it. They're going to try to raise some privately. If they can't, it's not that much more. It's more, but like to have it done and done right. But yeah, if you haven't, for those in the community, if you haven't seen it, please drive through Chautauqua Park both day and night. It's really sharp at night, but for all of you guys on the council that voted on it, you all did. I appreciated the support, and we got one right this time. So
Hey, Ted, are they gonna have like an unveiling or an open house? Like
I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, they're going to have a ribbon cutting and the whole deal.
Okay,
Yep.
but you don't know when it is yet?
Yep, nope.
Okay.
Well, while we're down there, why don't, on the next work session, we have a little discussion about that duck pond?
Love to.
That stinks.
Their group has had some discussions about that, so.
Okay, we actually are going to go into executive session tonight. Before we go into executive session, the next regular city council meeting is October 2nd, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Beatrice Public Schools Administrative Building. There will be a special meeting on September 29th, 2023 in the City Hall Conference Room for the purpose of approving final claims for FY23, and we do need a quorum there, so those of you who can make it, please do so. With that, Mr. McLean.
I move the city council go into executive session for the protection of public interest regarding contract negotiations at 5:01 p.m.
Second.
It seems later. Seems later at 5 o'clock, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And motion passed 5-8, nothing.
8-0.